The first regional consultation on the rights to safe drinking water and sanitation in ASEAN, with an emphasis on rural communities, was held in Karambunai, Sabah in Malaysia.
Article 28E of the ASEAN Human Rights Declaration 2012 affirms the right to safe drinking water and sanitation as part of the right of every person to an adequate standard of living for himself or herself and his or her family. Water and sanitation are rights and freedoms which carry with them obligations and responsibilities. They are not to be treated merely as needs, which are based on charity or voluntary commitments by states. Sustainable Development Goal SDG 6 now seeks to ensure the availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all.
The regional consultation brought together representatives from government departments and ministries, ASEAN sectoral bodies, national human rights commissions, civil society organizations, as well as technical, human rights and legal experts.
I think an experience like this is always very valuable for any organization or any group of people, because it's one thing to be discussing things at a meeting, but another to focus really on one single matter. And in this case, it's the right to safe drinking water and sanitation. The thinking around this topic must begin somewhere, and it's always good that we have not only human rights people, but technical people as well and administrative people, so that we're sure that we're not leaving out any dimension on the topic of safe drinking water and sanitation.
That this is very timely. It's the subject matter is not new, but at least it's something that is important. Is one of the Sustainable Development Goals, Sustainable Development Goal 6 in the UN 2030 agenda, and of course this is now also have to be also because all member countries of ASEAN have also signed up to the SDG goals in 2015, and so all member countries of ASEAN would have to start implementing, which will include this SDG 6 goal on water and sanitation. So now in ASEAN, we will have to look at it also from a regional perspective and see how that can be further enhanced and improved. Okay, so I think this certainly consultation is the first of its kind, I would say, at least to my knowledge, and it's a very important thing.
Over the first 2 days, the consultation heard from various country experts on efforts to improve access to clean water and sanitation in their respective countries, as well as the challenges involved. Participants also heard from the ASEAN sectoral bodies involved in coordinating water resources management and the different ASEAN commitments in this area. The issues of water and sanitation cut across several sectors and thus involve the Senior Officials Meeting on Rural Development and Poverty Eradication, the Senior Officials Meeting on Health Development, the ASEAN Senior Officials on the Environment, and the ASEAN Working Group on Water Resources Management.
Now, the AWGWM Strategic Plan on Water Resources contains 4 key issues, which deals with supply, demand and allocation, water quality and sanitation, climate change and extreme events, and governance and capacity building. So these are the 4 key issues.
This is just a rundown of what I have gone through, the various documents that ASEAN has either declared or committed to. Of course, the first one is the obvious one, the Human Rights Declaration, which has a reference, which I think we all know already. I think the next one, early on, Dato Hisham has already mentioned about the ASEAN and the Working Group on Water Resources Management. They have a strategic plan which has addresses something on safe drinking water and sanitation and set some targets, for example. And then the new plan, which is now actually already developed but still waiting for final endorsement, also has a component on water and sanitation. Okay, so there's something there. And interestingly, in that draft plan, there's also a proposed collaboration with SOMHD, which is a health development committee, right, under ASEAN. Nevertheless, under the ASEAN structure. We have a health, senior officials working on that, and they have also indicated sanitation and water and sanitation under the environmental health rubric of their plan.
Access to safe drinking water and sanitation has improved across ASEAN member states. However, many still do not have access to these basic facilities, especially in rural communities.
There are many times that those who live in urban and developed areas, by accident and not by design, take access to safe drinking water and sanitation for granted. Life is much tougher for rural communities in terms of enjoying the accessing the basic necessities such as safe drinking water and sanitation. The root of water crisis is not about the shortage of physical supply, but are traced to poverty, inequality, and unequal power relationship, as well as water management policy that exacerbate scarcity.
So what does the right to safe drinking water and sanitation mean?
The right to water contains both freedoms and entitlements. Remember, I'm only talking about the right to water here. The freedoms include the right to maintain access to existing water supplies necessary for the right to water, and the right to be free from interference, such as the right to be free from arbitrary disconnections, we were just talking about that a while ago, or contamination of water supplies. By contrast, and it's a contrast, entitlements include the right to a system of water supply and management that provides equality of opportunity for people to enjoy the right to water. The rights to water and sanitation require that these are available, and you heard it also, accessible, safe, acceptable, and affordable for all on the basis of equality and non-discrimination. These elements are clearly interrelated. While access to water may be guaranteed in theory, how does it really stand in reality? If it is too expensive, people do not really have access. Women should not have to use sanitation facilities which are not maintained or are not segregated. If so, then it is really not accessible. The right to water and sanitation further require an explicit focus on the most disadvantaged and marginalized, as well as an emphasis on participation, empowerment, accountability, and transparency. Now, this litany of qualities completes what we know to be, what we recognize to be a human rights-based approach in doing things.
It is therefore paramount that efforts to improve access to water and sanitation are guided by the principles of non-discrimination and equality, including geographic inequalities experienced by communities in remote rural areas, group-related inequalities based on ethnicity, race, nationality, language, and religion, and individual-related inequalities based on gender, age, and disability. This includes groups with special needs, such as persons living with health conditions, women and girls during menstruation, and for specific religious and cultural purposes and needs. Where services linked to access to safe drinking water and sanitation have been privatized, the state continues to have the full obligation to regulate and monitor the activities of those private service providers and to provide for effective remedies when those rights have been violated. At the same time, private businesses also have responsibilities to respect human rights in conducting their own operations, in line with the UN guiding principles on business and human rights.
On day 3 of the consultation, participants discussed what the right to safe drinking water and sanitation means in the ASEAN context. The groups presented on what it means in ASEAN for water and sanitation to be available, accessible, adequate, affordable, and of good quality.
This meeting is very useful because we are talking about the right to safe drinking water and sanitation in the rural communities. The right to water is a human right, and that needs to be fulfilled by the governments. And by meeting together, we are able to find out the views from 10 member states of the ASEAN countries so that we can come up with the common understanding and submit this to the Aichr group to come out with a document. So it has been very, very helpful in trying to achieve the understanding among us with the view to safe drinking water and sanitation in the rural communities.
In this respect, therefore, I urge Aichr to accelerate its works programs to inspire the region by infusing into ASEAN's framework a common set of human rights principles and good practice in handling the competing demands and needs, especially for those in the rural communities. On this note, I commend the Aichr for initiating these imperative consultations. As ASEAN matures, more human rights will come to the fore, and the Aichr must play an active role to formulate methods and strategies to improve human rights standards in this region.